we do, of course, welcome those who are joining us via YouTube or Preach the Truth Radio. I'm going to double check, make sure that I did cut the radio there on, so let's make sure that it is actually working. So hopefully we can get going. I'm not hearing anybody. I'm going to go back and double check this real quick. And there's unsuspected. So once again, we are in Genesis, and we are going to be in chapter 9. But before we do proceed to look there, Jim, you had a question at the end of, well, toward the end of class. I think John pretty well answered it, gave some scripture. And in further looking at that, I did actually come across a passage, but unfortunately I didn't bring it with me, and it's not coming to mind. But I did come across some things that do lead me to believe that, in fact, that yes,
yeah,
yes, they were skinning these animals whenever they sacrificed. So, brief answer, and I guess that kind of gives you some thoughts a little bit more on that, and of course we can continue to study those things. It's good to be able to look at them. We are, of course, in chapter 9 of Genesis, and as we've been lately, we are progressing through the events surrounding Noah and the flood. We see, of course, Noah was told to build an ark. He was told what to build it, all of these things, and was told to enter the ark. These animals, told about the animals, they entered the ark, and of course God shuts the door. And of course, the flood comes, and we're told all about this. And now we're seeing after the flood. And of course, there at the end of chapter 8, God makes this promise: while the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. So we see this kind of this statement about the cycles of time, and in fact, they continue today, don't they? As a matter of fact, today is what? First day of summer. Longest day of the year here. I was a little depressed to hear that. It'll start getting darker a little bit earlier, but of course it'll take a little time before we start noticing that. Once again, I forgot to turn those off. But anyway, we see this promise, and then there in chapter 9, beginning with verse 1, and God blessed Noah and his sons, and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. We see this same thought, I suppose, in a sense. There is some difference, though some people try to latch onto it and suggest, again, this gap theory or some of these theories about creation. But you see that Adam and Eve was told to what? Replenish the earth, the King James Version, I believe, says. But we see that they were told to what? Multiply, have children, and fill the earth, right? And here we see, of course, what's happened to everybody else.
Gone.
They're all dead and gone, right? Wiped away in this flood. But God tells Noah and his sons and their family to what? Have children, refill the earth, and so of course we see, of course, obviously that occurred. They did. Bill, I think you had a comment there.
And you mentioned Adam and Eve. I've heard different people say that's because they didn't know what they were talking about. But I've heard different people say that's when Adam and Eve started having children. That's when the sin came in, because he started doing that. And God does not tell anybody to sin, because God does not want anybody to sin.
Well, I'm not sure I've ever heard that idea as far as that they were sinning and having children,
Okay.
but I wouldn't be surprised. People come up with all kinds of strange ideas, we'll say. And so that certainly wouldn't be a surprise. But you're right, God does not tell us, um, at least He does not want us to sin. Let me be very clear on that. Certainly, God allows man to sin. Um, we know that that's the case. God gives us the choice, and ultimately, God's position is if you decide to, that you have at it, but there are consequences to that. But we see here again that they're told to replenish the earth. Verse 2, and the fear of you and the uh, dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every fowl of the air, upon all that moveth upon the earth, and upon all the fishes of the sea. Into your hand are they delivered. So he gives them again what? Dominion over animals. Of course, they had dominion, but here now, this fear is coming upon these animals. They're going to all be afraid of you. Um, and in fact, isn't that true? Aren't animals typically afraid?
Most.
I'd say they all are to some extent, Jim. What do you have in mind? Lions, tigers, bears? Oh my.
Well, black bears, brown bears are definitely afraid of man. Grizzly, not so much.
Well, I wouldn't go pick a fight with one. Let me put it that way. I'm not going to go out and mess with them. But you can actually intimidate even. I think lions came to mind with me. I was watching a nature show where the Maasai, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, the Maasai people, where they would have two or three men, then they would get shoulder to shoulder, and they would approach these lions that had killed an animal, that had just killed this animal, and they videoed this, and they approached these lions and scared the lions away from the kill, and came up and took a leg off the animal, um, and left. Now, I'm not going and trying that because I don't have that experience. But these lions over there, they are familiar with the Maasai people, and they are scared of these people. And you would think that that would not be the case. I mean, you think about the average person. If I'm not holding a big gun, I am at a disadvantage to that lion. He is a lot bigger than I am, and much, you know, a great danger to me.
It may be also that if there's 2 or 3 lions and one person, they're not too impressed. But if there's one lion and a dozen people, then they're impressed.
Well, there was more than one lion there, so you know, but it just goes to show you that you can tend to intimidate them. We think about spiders. I am very much afraid of spiders. Obviously, spider's not a big lion or whatnot, but in fact, spiders are what? They're afraid of you, aren't they? They want to get away from you. They don't want to bother you. Most animals, I would submit pretty much all animals, well, you get some that, like lions that will decide to kill, but man, and then they lose their fear of man. But most animals show this fear to some extent. And again, you do see some varying responses and so forth. But here again, we see that God tells them that, these animals are going to be afraid of you. They're, you know, fishes of the sea, and you have what? I'm delivering them into your hand. Every moving thing, verse 3, that liveth shall be meat for you, even as the green herb have I given you all things. But flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall ye not eat. So now they're being given these animals to eat, right? These things are for your food, they're being told. Some people get into the thought, and there are people who absolutely think it's a horrible thing to kill and eat an animal. And somehow that's terrible. Well, here God is telling them what. They're for food for you. Eat. Now, he restricts that, doesn't he? Can't eat the blood. Or some people do so, and God is not pleased. And there's really a practical reason to doing that, isn't there? Because blood actually carries what?
Disease.
Diseases. I was going to say nasty little critters, but however you want to put it, that it is actually not a good thing to be eating such, and there's the life. Life is in the blood, and so they were not to eat of that. They were, of course, to what? Drain the blood. Bill, you had another comment?
Yeah, those people, they say it's so wrong to kill that. And a lot of those same people eat meat, and that's, meat comes from bad.
Well, no, I was thinking more along the line of people who actually are opposed to eating meat, uh, as opposed to, I mean, are there people who are like that? I'm probably, but I was thinking along the lines of vegetarians and even further over, vegans. Uh, they won't even eat dairy products because it comes from animals. But here they're given these. They're told that the these animals are going to be food for them, and they're not to eat thereof. Beginning in verse 5, and surely your blood of your lives will I require. At the hand of every beast will I require it, and at the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of man. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God made he man, and you be ye fruitful and multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth, and multiply therein. But we see there in verses 5 and 6, there's a penalty to disobeying God, isn't there? And specifically, now he talks about the at the hands of our, the beast, they're going to, he's going to require your blood for them. But if you shed man's blood, what do you find? Capital punishment, isn't it? Now, of course, we know the Bible does make a distinction between uh, accidentally killing someone as opposed to murdering someone. Um, if I get mad at Bill and I set out and he just irritated me and I just decide I'm gonna get him, and I wait behind some tree until he comes around and I come out with a bat and what? I hit him and do him in. I murdered Bill at that point. And God requires Bill's blood. He requires my blood because of killing Bill, right? Uh, there's a punishment. That's what he's teaching, what he's saying here. Now, as opposed to, I'm playing baseball and here comes the pitch and I swing and poor old Bill, and don't take this personally, Bill. I'm not saying this, but Bill, he's a knucklehead, and he just runs right out in the way when I swing. Well, I had no intent to hit Bill, but he kind of got a little goofy and decided to run in the way. Well, in that case, and you go in fact, under the Levitical priesthood, you see that really spelled out much more, don't you? Whereas with the cities of refuge, and they could go there and they would be judged, and if they were guilty of murdering, they would be delivered over to the avenger, and if they weren't, the avenger was told, no, you can't have him. Right? He's here, and he would stay there until the high priest died, and then he was free. So in fact, what do you see there? You see he's being put in prison, isn't he? In a sense, I mean, it may not be in the prison that you and I are
Call it exile.
are used. Well, it's exile, but I would submit that it's in a sense in a prison. Now there's a lot of differences in the sense that you're free to leave. You do bill in,
But if you leave, then
you're subject to the punishment. But now, after the high priest dies, you're free, and they can't touch you. They can't kill you. So you do see that. Of course, that's later on, and that's under the Levitical priesthood here. But we see that he institutes, in fact, capital punishment. There are people who are absolutely opposed to it. It fascinates me, and always has over the years, and I don't want to really get bogged down into it because it's not a point of really in this chapter per se, but they have no problems with abortion, but you can't go kill the murderer, you know, kill the innocent baby, kill the poor old person who's in poor health, um, or at least let them kill themselves, maybe even encourage them to kill themselves. But these killers, we can't kill them, we can't put them to death. Well, in fact, God here says that's exactly what He expects. Bill?
as a matter of fact, God says it's an abomination to shed blood over us.
God is absolutely opposed to it, and of course, abomination. Um, but it is an abomination to Him. Verse 8, and God spake unto Noah and to his sons with him, saying, and behold, I establish my covenant with you and with your seed after you, and with every living creature that is with you, of the fowl, of the cattle, and of every beast of the earth, with you from all that go out of the ark to every beast of the earth, and I will establish my covenant with you. Neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood, neither shall there any more be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, This is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and you, and it shall come to pass when I bring a cloud over the earth that the bow shall be seen in the cloud, and I will remember my covenant which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and the waters shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh. The bow shall be in the cloud, and I will look upon it, that I may remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is upon the earth. Some things to note here. We often speak of the covenants of God as what? The Old Covenant or the Old Testament, and the New Covenant or New Testament, right? But in fact, there are multiple covenants found in Scripture, isn't there? We find a covenant right here that God makes with Noah and what? Everyone and everything else. He, in fact, says he's making it not just with Noah and his family, but he's making it, and of course, that would be all mankind too, but he's making it with the beast. He's saying here, I will never destroy all flesh. Now, he uses that term, all flesh. We've talked about in time in previous classes about the idea of, are we talking about a regional flood or a worldwide flood? And I submit, as I've said already, that it is a worldwide flood. The evidence is that it's a worldwide flood. But here's the thing. I submit that if you read this in context, that's exactly what he's saying here. He promises that he will not bring a flood to destroy all flesh, you know, the whole world. Let's see, get this right. I will establish my covenant with you and shall not flood, neither shall there any more flood to destroy the earth, he says. Well, if it was a regional flood, there's a problem with what God has just said here. Because there are floods today, aren't there? Floods occur. Floods in pretty large areas occur. Now, typically, there may be a general area, but there's some pretty big areas that flood, and still people die in floods. So I would submit the idea here would exclude the idea of a regional flood, because you still get floods that happen in large areas. And yet, what do you not see today? You don't see a worldwide flood. You don't see the whole earth being flooded. But I thought I would point that out again. We do see in there that idea, but he makes this idea of the rainbow. We see, and it's my intent this Sunday is going to touch on some of these things, um, because what is this month? June, right? But what we see most months are, and actually most months are probably two or three different things. But this is also what? Pride Month, isn't it? I'm sure we've all heard something about Pride Month, you know. Um, and we see that the rainbow is used in that sense. We can see, in fact, look around. We see flags that are put up, rainbows. Um, what does God say the rainbow is? Rainbow isn't anything to do with something that is sinful. In fact, the rainbow is a promise that God is not going to what? He's not going to destroy the world by a flood. Again, we want to qualify that with by a flood because, in fact, the Bible does teach God is going to destroy the world someday, but it won't be by a flood. It's going to be by fire. And he's going to destroy it all. There's not going to be, here, you go up here on this ark. If you're still here, that's a problem, and of course that would, just a little note, that would be a disproving of millennialism as well, because there's not going to, when the Lord returns, there's not going to be an earth here to have some 1,000-year kingdom set up, because he's going to destroy all of this.
Gonna make the Jehovah's Witness up.
Well, there's going to be a lot of folks that are going to be quite shocked
The
about that.
the flood and the changes that were made to the earth, on the earth during that flood, give us an idea of what God's power is. And if he can do it there with just a little bit of wrath, and he's still preserving Noah family and the starts of all the other animals, he can do it again. And he can do it totally.
Oh, he's perfectly capable, but then again, he created it all. If I have the power to create something, I have the power to destroy it, don't I? If I went out here and built a house, which I wouldn't try because I'm not a good carpenter, and I don't have that talent, if you will, that ability. But if I went out here and built a house, I could just as easily destroy it. I mean, there might be laws against, I go over here, maybe there's a vacant lot here somewhere and I build a house. There's probably laws that says, well, I can't go over there and burn it down or anything. But if I have the ability to build that house, then I have the ability to, in fact, destroy that house. In fact, I'm much better at tearing things down than I am at building them.
State of Missouri, you can tear it down, or you can burn it after the roof has been removed.
Oh, really? Well, right now they have a burn ban around here anyway, so they would get a little upset with me. But we do see, again, we see this promise that is made, this promise that God is not going to do it. And every time it rains, you look around and what do you see? You see that rainbow somewhere, don't you? And there's this promise that God's not going to destroy the earth by a flood. And that's a covenant that he's made, and it is an everlasting covenant. It is one that he still is reminded. And it fascinates me. It's always fascinated me in reading that it says that God speaking says, when I see it, it'll remind me, right? I'll be reminded. I'll remember that I made this promise. Doesn't God remember anyway?
God's got a better memory than we.
Well, certainly. But we see this, don't we? We think about Jacob or Israel and Laban, his father-in-law. Remember Jacob, he says, Laban doesn't like me anymore. It's all not going well for him, and he sees all that. So I'm gonna leave, and he talks to his two wives, and who are Laban's daughters, and oh yeah, we'll leave. So off he goes, and then here he finds out they're gone, and what does he do? He takes his men and he pursues after them. Of course, now God told him, you better watch it. Don't go say anything good or evil. Don't go what? Don't go pick a fight with him. Don't go try to attack him. You better not. And of course I'm paraphrasing here. But Laban comes here and talks to him and all of this, and you can go back and read that. But what did they do? Set up a memorial there, didn't they? I think it was some rocks they set up. They were often setting up rocks. And what was that as a reminder? It's a reminder between you and me. I won't pass over to you to kill you, and you won't come over here past these rocks to kill me. And in fact, we see that later on with the 2.5 tribes, right? Now they built an altar, and here these other tribes, they come over here and say, now wait a minute, what are you doing? God's already mad at us with all this stuff we've done in the past. You're going to make it even worse, and if it's a problem, you just come over here and you'll inherit with us. And they, of course, pointed out Phinehas and the other men that were sent. They said, no, that's not what this is for. This is a reminder that later on, if you say, you guys are over there on the other side of the river there, and you have nothing to do with us. This is a reminder, hey, look at here. We serve the same God you do. We're not sacrificing here. We'll sacrifice there. But this is a reminder that as a witness, right? And that's the idea that we see here with God is putting this reminder up here. Now he does say here, I'll be reminded, but it's a what? It's a reminder to us, isn't it? I don't know if I want to say a witness. Maybe there's good, again, that idea, the witness between us and God, that God has made this promise to us. God has made this promise, and of course we know certainly that God will not lie, cannot lie. Hebrews 6 verse 18. So we know God's promises are certain and will be kept. It's about time to be concluding here. We're going to stop here and we'll pick up at verse 18 next week. But before we do, does anybody have any questions or thoughts? If not, go ahead and be studying for next week. And again, we'll pick up there in chapter 9 and verse 18. And appreciate everyone's comments. Appreciate anyone who watched on YouTube or listened on Preach the Truth Radio. And hope you'll continue to do so.